In 2132, there is a legend among space hunters that whoever goes to the White Void will be cleansed of all diseases. However, the entrance there is guarded by the huge dragon Tianlun. Once upon a time, a ship of hunters spotted Tianlun and killed his female dragon, but the enraged dragon destroyed the ship. After some time, the captain of the Essex mining vessel, Richard Bentley, flies to Earth to find a map that marks the places where Tianlun was once seen. The head of a mafia clan promises a huge bonus if they capture the beast. But then it turns out that the cafe is under surveillance. The bandit grabs the captain, but Richard does not allow to infect himself with an alien parasite. He gets into a fight, throws the spider at the bandit, and disappears. The man takes the card, but does not notice that he is being followed by an agent of the Space Protection Society. 3 months later, Agent Lynn Navarro is sent after Richard's ship. Her colleagues will be keeping an eye on Richard, but after her departure, her colleagues discuss with skepticism the girl's belief that one can be cured in the White Void. The girl is met on the ship by Richard and Owen. It becomes clear that the younger brother liked the girl. Owen introduces Lynn to the ship and says that Essex is an old Russian ship in which almost everything had to be updated. Later, Lynn goes to her cabin, where she studies data on the crew members. Mechanic Stabnisky was convicted of vandalism. He fell asleep with a plasma knife, blew up a couple of fuel tanks, and destroyed a freighter. Ben was caught poaching and suffers from alcohol addiction. The captain's younger brother, Owen, was the best combat pilot. Vitaly has been convicted twice for assault. Harp is her boyfriend. Ruxland is saved from the tribunal by 2 friends at once. Captain Richard received many awards, was the best in training, then was fired after a fight with a superior officer. A colleague wishes Lynn luck in finding what she's looking for. After all, the girl has terminal cancer. Meanwhile, Essex traps clickers, creatures that are found in outer space. While the others are catching small things, Owen rushes after a larger clicker. Suddenly, Ruxland notices that Owen has flown too far away from the ship. She has to set up a ropeway for a lost astronaut, and then a huge space dragon floats past the ship, which is definitely Tianlun. Owen gets to the ship, and the dragon disappears into space. Later, Lynn says that 6 months ago, one of the ships met a dragon that was 5 times larger than usual, and that's where their signal was cut off. They may have found the Chinese celestial dragon guarding the entrance to the White Void. Recently, their existence has almost been proven. Dragons can be tracked by the ambergris they give off, but Richard announces that Essex is returning home. Later, the captain explains his decision to Harp by saying that he intends to drop Lynn off and return. After this, Richard reviews the video message of his father, who on his ship reached a distant galaxy in search of Tianlong and the White Void. Then he remembers how his father spent time with them on Earth and gave him a real saber. At this time, 2 small pirate shuttles appear nearby. Essex won't be able to leave because their engine is damaged. The captain decides to give up the loot because this is the only way to save the ship. The men hide Batley and Raxlin, but Lynn refuses to hide and prepares her weapon. As the bandits come on board, the pirate captain notices Lynn and begins to harass her. The rest are held at gunpoint and cannot do anything. But then the pirate suddenly releases the girl, showing everyone the organization badge. The girl is not just an observer. Richard is surprised by this but doesn't show it. The pirates take the loot and leave, but in parting, the captain orders them to quietly plant a bug. When the bandits leave the ship, Richard orders Lynn to be locked up because it was her messages that could have put pirates on the trail of Essex. The team has 2 options: fly home with nothing or catch Tianlong, for whom they will receive huge money. They decide to go for money. At this time, Lynn confesses to Owen that they knew about Richard's intentions to capture Tianlong. Owen goes to the captain to sort things out, but at this moment, pieces of ambergris come into view, which costs more than any clicker. The hunters put on a spacesuit and go out to collect it, and at that moment, the pirates appear again, having spotted new prey. Then they open fire. Stabnisky repairs the hyperdrive, which turns on at the last moment, and saves Essex from being hit. But now the pirates will definitely return. At this time, Stabnisky suddenly notices that something is moving under his skin. The rest of the crew meets at the table. They have ambergris, which costs a lot, so they can go home. But the problem is that they lost the beacon. Richard promises to negotiate with Lynn and goes to her cell. Stabnisky tries to wash himself and expel the parasite, but his skin itches more and more. At this time, Batley tells Harp that they will have a child. The guy is not particularly happy about this message because a child requires a lot of money. Richard confirms Lin's findings and announces that a beacon has been installed on Tianlun, and the Essex's sensor is installed on the pirate ship, so the agents will never find them. But Lin assures that the main thing for her is the White Void. Unable to reach an agreement, Richard leaves. At this time, Harp offers Batley to steal the ambergris, because they need to feed the child. He has a plan that will help them escape. Meanwhile, Stabnisky is feeling worse and worse. Lin manages to open the partition and get out of the cabin. She sees how Stabnisky begins to break the components of the oxygen tanks, but then she is stunned by Harp while Stabnisky runs away. Harp later reports to the captain that it was Lin who tried to destroy the oxygen supply. At this time, a strange sound is heard outside and the captain orders the pilot to check the radar. People are surprised to see many fragments of spaceships, which, apparently, were also looking for Tianlun. But then Ben reminds that the oxygen cylinders are damaged and Stabnisky has disappeared somewhere. Then they go looking for the mechanic. At this point, Lin suddenly sees the clicker freed from the cage. Richard comes running to her scream. The guy barely manages to fight off the space monster that follows them. They eventually manage to lure the clicker onto the loading deck and crush the monster with heavy slabs. The girl is taken to the medical bay because she is very scared. Owen speaks out that his brother is as callous as their father, who abandoned them and their mother. At this time, Harp persuades Rasklin to help him turn the ship around, because otherwise they will all die by the will of the captain. But the girl does not want to betray Richard. Meanwhile, Owen sends a signal for help, which is intercepted by the pirates. But Tianlun finds Essex earlier and attacks the ship. It destroys half of the protective field. The dragon flies around the ship. Owen comes outside. Richard orders his brother to return, but he attacks the dragon. He manages to lasso the animal while the others go to help. The hunters shoot, but the dragon throws Owen away, and he hits a piece of rock hard. Richard tries to shoot, but Lin disables the system and tries to protect the rare animal. The captain hits her, but at this time, Tianlun kills Owen, after which he flies into the white hole that opened in front of him. Richard cries from the pain of loss. When Ben arrives, he consoles the captain, reminding him of his mission. At this time, Harp seeks Ruxlin's consent to carry out the mutiny, because the captain will chase the dragon until he destroys the entire crew. At this time, Lin comes to her senses and threatens Richard. The man admits that his brother liked her. Richard is ready to throw her out of the airlock, but it won't help now. The oxygen level is falling, and Stabnisky has disappeared somewhere, so they need to return. People go looking for the mechanic and see slime coming out of the pipeline. Lin realizes that there are parasites on the ship and decides to destroy them. Richard gives her his saber. The girl promises to kill the monsters, and in return, Richard will have to fly into the White Void. At this time, Ruxlin reports the approach of pirate shuttles, but at the same time, Tianlun appears. Lin tracks down and destroys the parasites. At this time, Richard commands an attack on the dragon, but it hides behind asteroid debris. The pirates see him and open fire, but the animal grabs the shuttle and takes them with it. Essex is in distress and loses power. Ruxlin tries to start the system while the dragon throws the pirates' shuttles into the ship. At this time, Stabnisky finds Lin and attacks her with a knife. The woman injures his arm, from which parasites begin to emerge, after which the mechanic runs away. Ruxlin manages to minimize impacts on the ship and start all systems. Richard thanks the woman and tells her to rest. The girl goes to the shower, where she is attacked by a one-armed mechanic and stabbed several times. At this moment, a signal is received that Tianlun is approaching. Richard prepares to lure it and goes into space while Ben gets ready to capture the beast. Meanwhile, Stabnisky kills Batali. Lin sees this and attacks the mechanic. She manages to neutralize him. Meanwhile, Richard lures the dragon into being shot and Ben lassos it. But the ship is rapidly losing its protective field. Ben hurries to the evacuation capsule, where he is stopped by Harp, who intends to escape with Batali. He attacks the old man, but Ben fights back and puts the man under the arrow of a harpoon. At this time, the dragon grabs the captain and kills him. Ben manages to escape in the capsule and watches from as the dragon breaks the ship, which explodes. At the last moment, Lin manages to jump into another capsule and flies after the dragon into the White Void. Essex becomes a pile of rubble, while the SPCA's observer ship arrives and catches Lin's capsule as it escapes from the White Hole.